This, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the most iconic snakes of South America. Actually, I could even argue one of the most iconic animals of South America. When I was roughly 10 years of age, one of my main hobbies was reading all kinds of books about nature. And I remember one day I was just running through this nature encyclopedia and I discovered this chapter about different natural regions of the world. The great rainforests of Amazon were there, and Patagonia was there too. And then I found this picture with some weird-ass looking animals and some strange bushes, and there was also a cowboy riding out there in the distance. The place was called Gran Chaco, and I learned that it's some kind of a wilderness right in the middle of South America, and it gets really hot in there too. So the time went on and I managed to reach some kind of a maturity. And like all mature people do, like all adults do, I just started bumming around the world as much as I can. A few years ago, I was nerding about nature again, but this time online. You see, we found ourselves in a different era now. And I found a scientific paper on rapid deforestation of Gran Chaco region. And what I learned is that Chaco is turning into one of the most deforested areas on the planet. So the great American Chaco is just fading away. And I realized that if I want to explore the Chaco, I need to do it now, because very soon there might be nothing left to explore. Local Spanish name for this one is sapera, which would mean toad eater or a toad hunter, because it mainly feeds on amphibians, toads and frogs. And this is just a baby. They do get way bigger, up to 1 meter, and it's a very common creature in here. You can find them everywhere where you can find a bunch of toads and frogs. Now the coloration is very similar to all kinds of venomous pit vipers you can find. However, this snake is completely harmless. But what is this place, this Gran Chaco? Well, it's the second largest forested area in South America. Only Great Amazon rainforest is bigger. And usually it is described as a dry subtropical forest, the biggest of its kind in the world. But you know, Chaco is kind of a mixture of all kinds of things. I mean, all Chaco region could be divided in two parts: Chaco Seco, or a dry Chaco forest, and Chaco Húmedo, or wet Chaco forest. And while Chaco Seco could look like a desert, especially during the dry season, Chaco Húmedo could look just like a swamp with some palm trees in it. More than 780,000 square kilometers of land that is labeled as Gran Chaco is shared by 4 Latin American countries: Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, and then there is a little piece in Brazil. Argentina has the biggest share. Like 60% of all historical Gran Chaco region was found in Argentina. And Paraguay, well, 60% of Paraguay is considered to be Gran Chaco region, but only 3% of Paraguayan population lives in here, so I guess average Paraguayan barely knows anything about Chaco, and for them it's just no man's land, mostly. At least in Argentina they used to call Gran Chaco El Impenetrable, or the Impenetrable, and I think it was largely due to its thick vegetation. You see, it's almost next to impossible to move through these bushes, even with a machete. They say that Gran Chaco is the hottest part of South American continent, with temperatures sometimes rising up to 45 degrees Celsius or more. But in reality, there are seasons. There is this hot and wet season when it gets really hot, and sometimes it rains. And then when it rains, it floods. And then there is this cool, dry season, the winter, when weather gets somewhat chilly. Actually, at some really cold nights in dry Chaco, it drops down to 0 and it gets really dry, like extremely dry. In fact, water was the main problem, the main issue for people living in this area. Let's say in 2020, there wasn't any rainfall in many parts of dry Chaco for 8 months straight. And then eventually wildfires started and yeah, everything turned into some kind of a hell. Water is such a big issue for this region that during the Chaco War, military conflict between Bolivia and Paraguay in the 30s, Bolivian troops lost largely due to lack of water. Well, they don't call Gran Chaco green hell for nothing. Conditions are really tough. Believe me, I feel it myself, but this is really something different. There are dead animals all along the road. Cows, donkeys, horses, all dead. And still a few that are still alive. This is crazy. Well, I just assumed that what happened was the last few weeks were extremely hot. Like last week, every day, yeah, we had like 45 degrees Celsius. Insane heat, like insane heat. And I guess what happened was that the last water source in this area just dried out. And all of these animals just died straight away in a matter of a few days, you know. I mean, that's how much you can last in these conditions. I mean, I had almost had 3 sunstrokes today, so you know, it looks very brutal, that's for sure. First Europeans who ventured into these lands labeled Gran Chaco as Infierno Verde, or the Green Hell. And you see, many white folks who first came to these lands, well, they never came back, at least never came back alive. In Chaco, sometimes you get complete lack of water, you get some of the thickest bushes on the face of earth, and you get some really dangerous animals, such as highly venomous scorpions, spiders, and some venomous snakes. And on top of that, you got some nice assortment of tropical and subtropical diseases, such as dengue, which may not kill you, but could put you in a bed for a week or more, or chikungunya, which is somewhat similar to dengue, but symptoms last way longer. Also, Gran Chaco is a hot spot for so-called Chagas disease. And I'm guessing that in Chaco region, like in many other tropical and subtropical parts of the world, you could get the yellow fever, which was curiously enough brought by Europeans from Africa to South America during the times of transatlantic slave trade. However, very lucky for all of us, including myself, there is an effective vaccine that was created in the 40s. So nowadays you can travel, venture through these lands without paranoia of getting yellow fever. Or you may not get that vaccine because it is just a smart scheme created by Rothschilds, Bill Gates and secret elite pedophile clan. And they just want to put that nanotechnology into your bloodstream and then track you down. Because there's nothing more important for these secret elites than to follow some kind of a Eastern European redneck traveling around the world, you know, because I'm so important, you know, so elites, that's why elites are watching me. And then you can get your yellow fever and you can enter this toxic phase when you die slowly and your skin and whites of your eyes actually turn yellow and slowly die in convulsions from kidney and liver failure and brain dysfunction as you start bleeding from your eyes and from your nose. So yeah, don't get that vaccine, you know, it's all the scheme, it's all part of the plan. Yeah, you better die. Anyway, I really lost my train of thought at some point. But what I wanted to say with all this long rant is that for the next few months my aim is to travel to this Gran Chaco region. I want to cycle through the green hell. I want to penetrate the impenetrable and explore this region before it's too late. Because believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, but it might be that in 2-3 decades from now most of this will be lost forever. So I think now is the time, because later it might be too late. And what we got here, ladies and gentlemen, is easily one of the most iconic snakes, not just in South America, but I guess in all the world. It is boa constrictor. And this one is not just any boa constrictor. It is so-called boa constrictor occidentalis, a specific subspecies that can be found only in Gran Chaco region, and it has slightly different coloration. And this is not even a big animal. They do get way bigger than this. Large females get up to 3.5 meters. In the world of snakes, females are usually larger than males. Well, not always, but most of the time. And this is also the case with boa constrictors. Very unfortunately, these snakes are not common creatures in bushes of Gran Chaco no more, for many different reasons. First of all, deforestation. Their natural habitats are being destroyed throughout most of the range. Another reason is constant human persecution. These snakes are being hunted all over the place, mainly for their skin, sometimes for their meat, other times just getting killed on sight because of fear. Also, it is a very common victim in illegal pet trade, and believe it or not, but some of the snakes that end up in our terrariums in Europe or United States or some other parts of the world are still being caught in wild. Now just two things, ladies and gentlemen. First, when I encountered this boa constrictor, I was still recovering from salmonellosis. It's really funny how sometimes you might be wandering around wilderness all night long without finding anything significant. And then there are those nights when you just walk a little bit outside of the village, of course with camera that is running out of battery, and here we go, there's boa constrictor crossing the road. Oh, and salmonellosis was such a disgusting, disgraceful, despicable experience that I even gave up on filming my trip for a while. Second, when I was filming this footage, same motorbike pulled over twice, with rider just asking me how I was doing. Well, he clearly had some bad intentions in his mind regarding the snake. So I had no other choice but actually to throw this boa constrictor into my bag and walk half a mile into the wilderness and release it there. It's not humans that you need to protect from snakes. It's actually snakes that you need to protect from humans. Peace.